So let me ask about that, because as we're talking now, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, is basically committing what I'd call, Ruth, 21st century nullification. Right, he is not allowing Border Patrol agents near the border. He has, stacked it with razor wire and Texas Guardsmen, and now we probably have these constitutional sheriffs. Right, and remember that in most places, sheriffs are answerable only to two people: God and the voters. That's it. Right, they don't answer to anybody else. And now you have all other Republican governors saying they support this. You have Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, who is a crook of crooks, right, and only got off because, again, the whole thing was corrupt, saying this stuff and basically taunting the federal government and the president of the United States to come, with force, right? And as you know, so there's this authoritarian instinct, there's this strongman instinct, but I wonder too. I mean, Ruth, does Abbott know what he's doing, putting hundreds, if not thousands, of very heavily armed men in proximity to one another in a tinderbox situation? Does he know what could happen?
Absolutely.
Because I feel like a lot of times this stuff is sort of like they watch it on Yellowstone and they're like, that's cool. And then the next thing you know, you have, somebody pops off around just to do something. And it's, Lexington and Concord, but in Eagle Pass.
He not only knows what he's doing, this has been set up in terms of the culture of the party for a long time. And I can't, when I saw this, I just, with my particular niche, as you know, that I study foreign things, and then I turn my eyes on my own country where I was born and raised, and I can't believe certain things. So one of them is in 2022, the Texas GOP passed a resolution, so this is official, that said Biden was an illegitimate president and called him a, quote, acting president. I could not believe this. It's like, not only does it, it alludes to him not being around very long. He's just acting. He could be gone at any time. But it undermines his authority. And so based on this, the Texas GOP is not accepting or recognizing Biden's authority as president and therefore also as commander-in-chief. So when you have a resolution of this type and it sets up an insurrectionist mentality, this is a continuation of January 6th in some ways, and you also have constitutional sheriffs, you have, which like no other country in the world would tolerate these people who don't accept the authority. It's just insane. It's a bad idea. Also, you have anti-government extremists, and Trump did his bit to create a circumstance that would lead to something like this when he kicked off his campaign at Waco, Texas. So that, too, was very conscious.
Very close from the 30th anniversary of the Branch Davidians.
Right, who believed that their leader was, God.
The second coming of Jesus, yes.
So now what do we have? We have an army of God, these like rabid zealots, Christian nationalists.
And let's be clear, that's what they're calling themselves, the army of God.
Yes, they are calling themselves the army of God. So it's become a node, a hub for extreme Christian nationalists, anti-government extremists, militias, probably constitutional sheriffs, and a rogue, anti-democratic, insurrectionist GOP. All converge on this area. And what they would like is to provoke a kind of Waco writ large. So they want to provoke some kind of conflict because they want the Biden administration to go down in flames. They want to distract from the amazing economic statistics. They want to distract and make things as chaotic and anarchic as possible so they can say, we need a strong man to restore order because Biden is weak. But at the same time, they want to provoke an armed conflict. They want chaos, they want destruction, they want flames.
They want dead Texas Guardsmen.
Yes, and so in that sense...
At the hands of federal officers.
In that sense, it's the continuation of January 6th where the federal government and the Capitol Police, the people who represent law and order, become targets and have to run for their lives. So it's very, very dangerous. And I agree with the many people on social media who are asking why this is not front page news.
Well, and this is the other part too, to bring those nodes together, and I think it's really important. In your latest post on Lucid, you also talked about the bringing together of the political and the religious, and so now you have Speaker Mike Johnson, who was a backbencher of all backbenchers. He's now a right-wing Christian zealot in the speaker's chair, who said out loud, and Ruth, this is the other part we should always forget: these people tell you what they're going to do and why they're doing it. Is like, Joe Biden is giving us what we want, and we're not going to give it to him because we don't want to help him. So while Abbott is doing this, while he is stacking the sticks of TNT and running around with a lit match, right? The solution is awaiting, I should say the problem to be solved is awaiting a solution in Washington, D.C. And now Trump is saying, don't do it. I want to make immigration my thing. And even Mitch McConnell saying, well, we can't undercut him now. So you have all of these things mixing together. And to your point, again, nothing new in human history, but to your point about the press, like, why the hell isn't every major news, organization on the border going, I'm going to give you the straight dope about what's going on, but I'll tell you, these people are nuts.
Well, and even if we don't want to say they're nuts, if you look at this with the eyes of other countries, this is like sectarian violence tending toward civil war, meaning the people, not that we're in a condition to have a civil war, but they're insurrectionists at a state level. Greg Abbott should be in prison. He has no business being anywhere close to office, given what he is doing now. Or at the very least, it's this insubordination. But this is why it's very important to remember that the Texas GOP, of which he is, the titular head as governor, does not recognize Biden's authority. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around the enormity of this. When you don't recognize the president anymore, then you're free to do whatever you want.
And you're telling your supporters you live in an occupied country, ergo, anything goes.
Yes, that he's illegitimate. So this is why people are amazed that, Trump's lawyers are so insubordinate in courts, or GOP, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these people are so rude and unprofessional in Congress. Everything they're doing is to communicate their utter scorn and opposition to democratic institutions, including Congress, because it's not run by authoritarian Trump. It's run by a Democrat. Indeed, what was January 6th? It was an assault. We really should. Yes, it was an assault on the physical space of the Capitol, but I wish we would say every day it was an assault on members of Congress and their staffs.
And some of those members of Congress, like an Elise Stefanik, is hiding right in the pews, or I guess in the rows, above the floor as this is happening. Then goes out and puts out a statement saying, everybody that did this should be held to account. Now erases that and now says these people are hostages.
That's one of the saddest. It's one of the saddest things that people who ran for their lives had to call their spouses and to say they might be dying. We know all this, all the panicked calls that were made, are now backing the person who set the mob upon them. It's a kind of masochism, a collective masochism. And when do you see this psychological dynamic? You don't see it in democracies because Democrats don't sick an angry mob onto Congress. You see it in authoritarian states, like also Tim Scott, that very painful interaction.
Oh, God.
But this is like, I was watching that and I was like, yeah, okay, I have stuff in my book about, people who in Mobutu's Congo, a guy was like, he was a government official. Then he fell afoul of Mobutu. He gets put into prison. And then he comes out and he praises Mobutu all over again. Then he's put back in, he's tortured, he comes out. I mean, this is the total self-abasement and you
Yeah,
know.
it's darkness at noon, right?
Yeah, so Tim Scott, he says, "I love you," when Trump has just insulted him on live TV. It's all very sad, and you wonder how the families and loved ones of all of these Congress, people they were like terrified. What can they? Are they all? They've all made a pact to just forget about it. So the price for electing Trump is that the Pences and the Stefaniks, all of them, especially Pence, who was targeted for death, and then raised his hand that he would support Trump during the first debate, even if he becomes a convicted criminal. This is just the abyss. And the only way to understand these actions and all this stuff is authoritarian dynamics, truly. So that's why I always say the GOP is no longer a party in democracy. It's an authoritarian party with a cult leader.